have to get myself from one place to choir and reading and back and forth here. The second reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 1 through 12. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountainside, and after he sat down and the disciples had gathered around, Jesus began to teach them. Blessed are those who are poor in spirit. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. Blessed are those who are mourning. They will be consoled. Blessed are those who are gentle. They will inherit the land. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice. They will have their fill. Blessed are those who show mercy to others. They will be shown mercy. Blessed are those whose hearts are clean. They will see God. Blessed are those who work for peace. They will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of their struggle for justice. The kingdom of heaven is theirs. You are fortunate when others insult and persecute you and utter every kind of slander against you because of me. Be glad, rejoice, for your reward in heaven is great. They persecuted the prophets before you in the very same way.
Will you pray with me? Ever-living God, oil the hinges of our heart's doors that they may swing gently and easily to hear your still speaking voice among us this day. Amen. As the Beatitudes were just being read, I had a feeling there should be another one that went something like, "Blessed is the minister who knows where they stand, for long will be their success in intra-ministry." For a moment this morning you witnessed that I thought I was in another congregation, one where I was about a month ago, where the announcements and the welcome happened right after the prelude, and that's where I was transported. Even though I knew where I stood, old habits are hard to break. The challenge of intra-ministry sometimes is that you have to learn quickly, and I thought I had it all together last week, but this week you probably see the real Kelly standing out, where I forget where I am and where sometimes I get ahead of myself. But nevertheless, I think we all, even culturally, whether Christian or not, in some sense, we recognize the Beatitudes. That list of blessed are. To be blessed is something that we all seek. Now, in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke, the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount, and in Luke, the Sermon on the Plain, sort of have the same stories. But Luke also adds the woes. Woe are you. Luke doesn't give us those woes. And so today, we don't have to be woeful necessarily, but we can ponder for a while those blessings in life and what we do with them. So we hear Jesus on the top of the mountainside, and those first 4 disciples go up with him. It's a story where they are learning from Jesus, but we imagine that their other crowds might be around and listening in too. For you understand that Jesus, people are following. And I believe, in my sense of understanding, that it's not because of Jesus' great preaching. For if you really look at the Sermon on the Mount, It's a really long sermon, and I imagine that any pastor who would preach for 3.5 chapters of the gospel, you'd probably get a little tired all at once. So it's broken up in pieces for us. But Jesus is being followed up because Jesus is healing those along the way. He's healing those that are possessed, those who are ailing. Jesus is, for some, the great miracle worker. But also, as we know, that Jesus is so much more and tells us so much more. And so when we realize the blessings in our lives, we are called to move and do something with them. And Jesus begins, "Blessed are those poor in spirit." One commentary that I read this week said, poor in spirit literally means that they were poor, destitute poor. Now, I question that a little because the nuance of the language sometimes tells us more. In this case, it's poor in spirit. And then some commentaries and some folks would say, well, poor in spirit means those who don't have their faith altogether. They have questions and they are sort of, if you will, downtrodden in their faith. But I think poor in spirit really speaks of those who understand their lives, that sometimes it is our spirits and our lives that is more than being poor in spirit. It is that we understand our place in the world. It's not that we exceed and compare our faithfulness to others. It is our willingness to be poor in spirit, to be open, and to understand that we are not more and that our faith is not greater or less, but we look internally to know who we are, that we move out into the world not necessarily downtrodden, but understanding that we are always need feeling F-I-L-L-I-N-G in our lives, that we need to understand, that we can move beyond those boundaries. And even if we think in economic terms, the Beatitudes cross those boundaries. For you see, blessed, poor in spirit, also has that economic sense, is that we don't show all that we have. We don't hoard our wealth more than others and say, look how good I am. For some would say, and we imagine, and I have imagined, that the disciples and Jesus are the destitute, the poor. But you see, when the story continues and we get to chapter 10, Jesus sends those disciples out and tells them, take no gold or silver with you. Now, I imagine Jesus wouldn't be telling them to take no gold and silver if they had none. For we must remember that these disciples, some of them were fisher folk, that they had boats, they had homes in which they lived, they had some means. Now, I'm not saying they were wealthy, for we know the life of fishing goes up and down, much as this week the price of eggs have really shot sky high. But for you see, it is to know our place in the world. And it goes with the other Beatitudes, all those blessed. And often, I imagine, if I quiz some of you, or not quiz, but necessarily just think with you, when was the last time you felt very blessed when you were mourning? Probably not often if we think about it, but we are blessed. As Amy Jill Levine, a New Testament scholar who recently retired from the Vanderbilt Divinity School, points out, is that you are blessed if you are able to mourn, that you have a story to remember, that you have those friends and the past generations with you, that you have them mourn, that you are able to say, I loved someone. This person was important to me. Blessed are those who mourn. For she says that if you're unable to mourn, it means that you have no way of understanding. Perhaps you never have known what love might have meant in your life. My friends, it is indeed to be loved and blessed to know that we have been loved and that we are loved. And the Beatitudes continue that to be gentle, to hunger and thirst. Some translations translates it, instead of gentle, blessed are those who are meek. And we think immediately of those who are humble. Sometimes we think of meekness as, well, we're a little better, that we're not always so meek, that we stand up for what we believe. We stand out. That is sort of a put down, if you think about it. But meekness is also what we would say in our day and age is about good leadership. Wouldn't we much rather have leaders in the church, leaders in our nation, and leaders in the world who put meekness, humility above being right, or those despots themselves, that who understand there's a difference in leadership. Sometimes it is by leading and being meek that we can change the world. That we don't want to change the world and change lives all around by forcing our hand to say that you must be like us. And thank goodness there are places like Mountain Rise United Church of Christ who welcome that diversity and who calls us to be God's own. My friends, isn't that the blessings that we seek? And the Beatitudes continue. Blessed are those who show mercy. My friends, isn't it blessed to know mercy and to know love and to show that mercy, that there is justice and mercy go together, and there can be no justice without mercy, and there can be no mercy without justice. That is the world in which we live. That is what I believe from my short time with you, is who you are, who we are as a community of faith. For the Beatitudes call us to be those peacemakers, not peacemakers by force, that we will solve this problem and put it down if you just follow our 6-point plan. Now, sometimes we would all like to have those 6, 7, or 8-point plans because it would make our lives so much easier, wouldn't it? But the blessing is that we are wise enough to know that's not the way. For my friends, the Beatitudes is an opportunity not to just celebrate being blessed, but when we are blessed in life in general, there are great responsibilities. For if we hold those blessings so tightly to our chest and in our lives that they don't flow anywhere but to us, we leave the world more impoverished. For those blessings, we have the responsibility to share it. That when we mourn and we mourn with others, that we can share and know that blessing. As I often say to the bereaved in that sense, may there be a blessing remembered from his or her or their life, that may that blessing be a blessing to us now and for generations to come. For we believe that the responsibility of life is not to make our way through it just as we would, but to leave those blessings on the wayside that others may pick those flowers of justice and mercy and peace. To know the world is more awake and aware that there are blessings, for we have left them where we have been, for that is our responsibility as church and as people in the world. For blessed are those who share the responsibility of life and caring with others. Amen.